Welcome, everybody. This is a live episode of Move, Crush, Count. And with us, our special guest, our good friend, Mr. Sandy Cerami. How you doing, Sandy?
What's happening, buddy?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I have a malfunctioning green screen.
I thought it was because you were Irish.
I am Irish.
I know.
And
so
I
thought that was
my
like,
friend. I'll leave that was your at that.
I thought that was your default background.
Let's see what I can pull up here. I'll make something happen, SG. You know, we shift on the fly here. I'm gonna check out my new living room. There you go. So what's happening, buddy? We got some big news to share, yes?
Very big news. So we just launched our next Business Bourbon and Cigar event.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to use this opportunity to not necessarily we'll talk a little bit about Business Bourbon and Cigars and what it can do. But really, I wanted to use the opportunity to talk about event marketing, developing or forming strong relationships and networking that can come from these type of events, because I think it's a powerful tool for a lot of businesses to use. And I thought we'd kind of take that topic and go from there.
I love it. Let's do it.
All right. So for you, we've done Business Bourbon and Cigars. This will be our third event. And just a real quick cheap plug. This event's going to be down at the Hyatt Coconut Point Resort and Spa down in Bonita Springs, February 1st through the 3rd of next year, 2022.
Correct.
So great setup. Always a fun event. But for you've attended a lot of different events over the years, right? And let's not get into specifics on Business Bourbon and Cigars yet, but let's talk specifically. Why do you attend different events?
Well, first of all, you know that I'm the guy that loves the human interaction piece of it, right? So I always enjoy the opportunity to get together with other like-minded people. We talk about our events specifically. We have really high-level, high-performance, very highly motivated people. The ideas that we share, quite honestly, it's changed the trajectory of our business over at Sandy Cerami and Associates. I know that J&L specifically has benefited, but the best part about it is that everyone that attends benefits. So I love the opportunity to actually mix it up, share ideas. We share a few laughs along the way. I wouldn't be there if we couldn't do that otherwise, but I think that the opportunity to laugh and learn at the same time for me is always, a huge benefit.
Can you hear me okay?
I'm back. I think we lost you for a second.
Yeah, it said my audio was removed.
That happens at home too. Trisha's told me every once in a while she's got to mute your mic. Is that true?
Every now and then. She just kind of tunes me out. So let me ask you a question. You said the word like-minded, right? And I want to talk about that for a little bit, because I think there can be a misconception. I don't want there to be a misunderstanding on that. So we obviously want to surround ourselves with people that make us comfortable being uncomfortable, that can help us expand our comfort zone, things like that, right? Yep. And that doesn't always come from when someone says like-minded, right? You're not trying to when you say that, you're not saying you want to surround yourself with people that have all the same thoughts and ideas as you, as much as, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is I want to surround myself with like-minded people, meaning we all want to grow exponentially. We all want to get well past our comfort zones, right? Yeah. And so we're all willing, and we have a like mind in the sense that we know we can learn from a variety of different opinions and thoughts, and that's where the real breakthroughs come.
To that point, buddy. So yeah, like we when I say like-minded, I'm talking about people that are looking to get better, to improve their game, to share with others generously, to cultivate ideas, to have no fear in putting what may be a way far out there idea out there as a topic of conversation. One of the things that you specifically spoke about when we first started to collaborate together was that you love to take ideas from outside of a particular vertical and put it to work inside of another vertical, right? And it's something I had done subconsciously without actively thinking about it. I would see things that worked elsewhere. As far back as the mid 90s, when I was really just getting my my roots into this business on a professional level, and having some leadership responsibility and accountability, we were going to places like Restoration Hardware to see what they did in terms of merchandising and marketing. And so you were doing that in a very conscious way, where I was doing it in a semi-conscious way. So we want people that are willing, as you said, to get uncomfortable, to hear different ideas, and to be willing to have the courage to put that to work in their business in a way that they think they'll get the right level of execution.
Sometimes the trick, Sandy, what I've learned is to do things, to make things look like you're doing them in a conscious way.
Right.
But a lot of times.
I meant to do that. Exactly. You might have been involved in a conversation I had with Mary earlier today. I meant to do that. I tell her that all the time. I meant to do that.
Well, I remember being on your first podcast and, or my first time being on your podcast. And I said a lot of what we did initially was luck. And you go, oh, buddy, that wasn't luck. A lot of it was luck, because there were some things that we did early on from a product thing that was just copying from other industries, bringing them in. But that wasn't something that it just seemed like a smart thing to do.
Sure.
And we lucked into some things that it eventually evolved into. It wasn't necessarily part of our grand plan. But if you don't get out there and you don't do those type of things, I'd rather be lucky than good.
Well, yeah, no, I've heard that plenty of times before. It's the old Sam Snead. The more I practice, the luckier I get. Well, the more I look for ideas and look for opportunities to get better, the luckier I seem to become. That's personally and professionally. I think anybody could say that. But I really, when you had shared that concept with me, it really blew me away, because it told me a lot about how you think in terms of your businesses. And I loved it. It was something I started to pay more attention to, a lot more acutely than I had in the past, and made conscious decisions to look for opportunities, outside of retail automotive or the businesses that I work in, to try and bring different ideas into different verticals. There's a great book out there, Eric Ruby, a shout out to Eric Ruby, turned me on to a book called When I Stop Talking, You'll Know I'm Dead, by Jerry Weintraub. Unfortunately, Jerry passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a world famous Hollywood producer. He was a promoter, concert promoter. And he was very much the same way. A lot of his success was attributed to the fact that he was willing to take risks. He was willing to pay attention to his surroundings and to learn from other folks. And I think that's the roundabout way to answer your question that you originally posed, is why do I want to go out to these events? And that's exactly why. I want to learn from the best out there who have the same type of mentality as we do, that they're willing to listen, learn, and then take risks when they take that back to their businesses.
Yeah. And so, when I'm sitting here, and I'd love to get some questions. So just so you know, this will also be a short podcast episode that will drop next Tuesday on Move, Crush, Count. But at the same time, this is interactive with some of the audience people that are tuning in as we broadcast this live through Facebook and Instagram, or not Instagram, but LinkedIn and YouTube. And so if people could type in any type of questions in the chat. Are you getting that noise?
That's sorry. I live in the fire engine, fire siren capital of the world, Wyckoff, New Jersey. We have 4 firehouses in town here. So I think when they get bored, they just decide to go take a ride around town and blow the sirens off.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't a tech issue on our end. All right. So, for me, one of the things that I say when we start our live event is I want everyone to come from a place where anything is possible, because I think a lot of the things that restrict us when we're trying to come up with a breakthrough, some type of, whether it's a process or a marketing idea, some type of customer retention strategy, or maybe a strategy to gain new business, we restrict ourselves when we start thinking about ideas from a place of, well, that's never been done before, right? Or that might cost too much.
Or worse than that, we tried something like that in the past and it didn't work.
Yeah, you can't do that in this market. All kinds of things that limit us and keep us from growing exponentially or achieving some type of breakthroughs. And breakthroughs are what make people extremely wealthy. So, we're going to try something different this time. And I got this from Josh Linkner, who was a guest on a prior episode.
Yeah. Great episode, by the way. Just a shout out. I'm going to give you the shameless plug. Like if you're going to watch an episode of MCC, that is a great one to watch.
Well, it focused on the episode number escapes me now, but it's one of the more recent ones with Josh Linkner, but it was all on growth through innovation.
Yep.
And when you think about it, the event that we're going to be doing, a lot of it is about innovation. It's not about just copying best practices. We want breakthroughs, right? And so when we get on a topic such as increasing service and parts revenue and customer pay, right? Or maybe we're going to talk about leadership, or we're going to talk about how to grow through acquisition or raising capital, or customer retention, whatever it is. We don't want the same ideas that have been floated around or what people are already doing. I feel like most industries or verticals do a very good job recognizing what others are doing successfully and copying or integrating some of those into their processes very quickly. And our event's going to focus on automotive vertical. So we knew it does a very good job of copying very quick. No different than, say, the NFL when somebody wins the Super Bowl the next year, half the offenses in the league start molding themselves to it. That's right.
Same playbook. They start to develop the same, profile in terms of skill sets and
Yeah. So we're going to do something a little bit different. We got this from Josh, and I thought it was interesting when he said this. If you and I are sitting at a mastermind table and our job is to increase customer retention, improve it, right?
Yep.
We know most car dealers only retain on average anywhere from 22 to 25% of their customers.
Unless, of course, you're Adam Aarons.
That's right. Well, thank you, Ronald Marvo, by the way. Josh Linkner was episode number 44. Marvelous Ron.
Ron Marvo coming through once again.
And so we do have another question that I want to address, and we'll get to very quickly. But hang on a second here. What's the best way to get sales? From Dennis. So, by the way, I'll answer that short, and then we'll come back in more detail. The best way to get more sales is to have great marketing. So I used.
He served you up a softball, buddy.
Yeah, I used to think it was sales. So when I look at the first 10 to 15 years of our agency with J&L Marketing, we were a sales organization.
Yep.
And I used to think that if you wanted to be highly successful, the first thing you had to focus on was, assuming your processes and your product are good, by the way, your services, whatever you're selling. I used to think that sales was the number one thing. And I still believe that has to be a high priority, because you're not going to succeed much if you don't have that, right? But I do believe marketing is actually more important. And the reason I say that, and I think so, especially now, because with the internet, I think people are bombarded with so much stuff. They don't need to listen to that cold call as much as they used to. They're not answering the phones as much. If you listen to most salespeople now, the hardest part about their job is getting through to a decision maker.
Well, Scott, I'm going to argue that point to just a second, because you and I have had this conversation, and here's my take on it these days. If you have a great sales process or selling team, or are an exceptional selling professional, then marketing is the difference maker for you, because you need prospects to speak to, right? But you could have the greatest marketing in the world, and if your selling team, or you're I almost said the word, sorry, I'm in my Jersey mode. If you have a crappy selling system, a crappy sales team, or you're not a great selling professional, I don't care how many people we run at you, you're not going to achieve maximum results. And is that your brother? Your twin brother just showed up. There he is.
No, I don't know what to.
It's all good.
Hold on a second.
Anyhow, my point is this. I think marketing is more important than sales when your sales team is tuned up or your selling skills are sharp. If your selling skills aren't sharp or your team is not tuned up, then it doesn't matter. You're going to miss opportunity, and you're going to probably piss a few people off along the way, because they'll feel as though you false advertised ultimately. So I think that marketing is critically important, but when it becomes more important than the sales side of the equation is when your selling team or your selling skills are now at that really highly exceptional level. You got to have that.
So one of the things that Dennis, he's been typing here in the comments or in the chat is, he's asked, I'm having trouble getting a sales process down, selling marketing services, LinkedIn ? PPC, direct mailing ? And I really think the answer to that really depends on the industry you're in and the process. However, the one thing that's constant, regardless of your vertical, regardless of what channels might work for you, is I think you have to have a very clear and simple message as to how you're going to benefit customers. What is it that you do?
Absolutely.
Why should customers pay attention to you? And no matter what channel you're using, if you can't get that down and communicate in a very simple way to where the customer.
So shameless plug, Scott, right? My new platform that, we've basically taken 34 years worth of experience and codified it into something we call the 7 pillars of killer business development. We speak right to that. The first step is creating high value differentiation in terms of creating a brand and your marketing message. And it centers around exactly what you just said. What is the primary and secondary benefits that your prospective clients will experience as a result of doing business with you, and how it impacts them, right? It's very client focused. Going back to what you're saying before, where, years ago, the selling side of the business was more important. It was a completely different environment. It was harder to get your message out into the marketplace unless you had a huge budget, right? Now you don't need a huge budget to get your message in the marketplace. If you've got great messaging and great branding, you can use the tools that are at all of our fingertips these days to drive, the prospects and the leads to your business. Does that make sense?
So, listen, one of the
fire trucks again. Sorry, buddy.
That's just alerting the audience that
the roof is on fire. The roof is on fire here in Wyckoff, New Jersey, baby.
So one of the things that, when I sit here and, let's face it, one of the things, the reason Business Bourbon and Cigars as an event exists, right, is in a weird way, a lot of times the event is at the end of some people or some businesses' funnel.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
In other words, you're selling materials, you're selling books, you're selling whatever it is, all leading to an event. We kind of do it the opposite way. Whereas this event almost at least for us, right? At least for J&L Marketing, our agency, and your consulting business, it's the top of the funnel for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing people in, and that's really where I want to get this live episode talking to is on the networking and the relationships that are built throughout that, and then what eventually can come from that, right?
Yeah.
I think anytime you're going to do an event, you've got to make sure priority number one is that you're offering tremendous amount of value. The content has to be something that when attendees come, they're like, man, this was well worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just the cost of traveling to an event, the lodging or whatever with the hotels and eating out and all. It's the time.
It's the time.
That's correct. The time away from our businesses. And so for your audience, you and I chose an event that was more mastermind focused instead of a bunch of people just getting up there and speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get a lot out. I don't get a lot out of events where I'm sitting in an audience and all I do is listen to a bunch of people speak. I get more out of Clubhouse listening to how people speak than I do anything else, because it's a two-way street, right? I'm asking questions. I'm getting feedback. I've established better relationships through Clubhouse than maybe all of my other social platforms combined, especially in the last 6 to 12 months. And what that makes me feel is, and one of the reasons we wanted to go to this mastermind event, right, is, and have these type of events, is that's the real strength. I've had more business deals done just from the relationships and the network I've built in the last 6 to 12 months than I probably have in the last 5 years combined.
It's amazing. I agree with you 100%. And when we think about the emanation of Business Bourbon and Cigars, we came from a place, you and I both, from our heads and our hearts, where we sat down that first Friday at 5:30 with a bourbon and a cigar. And our one goal was, we've got to come up with some ideas that are going to help our dealer clients. And that's how we started. The entire concept of Business Bourbon and Cigars was from a service-based or a servant-based mentality. How are we going to help these dealers? Now, there was some selfish motivation in there as well, because look, we are business partners with all of our clients as well. Their success is our success, but we really sat down and said, we're not looking to run the meter. We're just looking to figure out how we can help people right now when they need it the most. And so I think that when you talk about the fact that we're going in there looking to generate ideas and generate relationships or create relationships, that speaks right to why we started this in the first place.
So it's funny. Let's talk a little bit about the format, because I think when you hear the word, there are two words that might be overused in marketing, or at least in the event space, probably more than any other two. And it's masterminds and roundtables.
Yeah.
And so our event includes both, right? But it's a true mastermind. And so I've got a personal friend that just chimed in. I'm gonna put this up there because I love it. All right. So
don't worry, Scott. We are quite careful. We don't spill a drop.
Yes, he says he put up a thing in the chat. Please be careful with all the bourbon.
Yeah,
so,
we are. We're very careful. We make sure we don't spill any of it.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to come down. We've got some great comments coming in today. Networking is big. I think we got, hold on here. Where is that? Networking is big. You may not get business the first one or even three times. It's about building relationship networks. Networking events are a big percentage of our income. That's from Manic Marketing. Martin Jones has got a great comment. Hands-on events are great. Also building a web of people who know who you are and what you do is key. It's like having a bunch of free salespeople. Correct. So one of the things
Scott, can we just talk about those 2 points for just a second? Because the amazing thing for us, and you and I have talked about this a lot, is off of the first two events that we did, we have really created some incredible lasting relationships, people that we did not really know very well, if not at all, prior to our first event last October, that you and I talked to. I know I talked to two handfuls of people from the first two events every week. Every week there's either a text, a phone call, an email, a Zoom meeting. I mean, I'm talking to folks literally every single week, and two handfuls of them off of those first two events. So it's genuine relationships. And by the way, I'm not doing business with every one of them, but ultimately I love the people aspect of it.
So one of the things that you and I first ran into, and this is for anybody that, whether it's a marketing company, you don't always have to do it the way it's always been done.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically with events, you have sponsors. The sponsors then get up, they speak, and the poor people attending have to sit there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes to an hour listening to nothing more but then a glorified pitch, right? And so we called it a mastermind in roundtable format, and we wanted it to be true to that. So, and this can be a tip for anybody thinking about these type of events, or, quite honestly, this can even be done within your own businesses in terms of an innovation type meeting, breakthrough type meeting to break out of the mold of whatever processes, marketing, sales, whatever it might be for your business. If you want to break through something, here's a structure that could even work within a business. Getting key teammates involved from different departments or different teams together, and
regardless of title.
Correct. And so one of the things that we do at this event, and I think that goes over very well, is we might have a topic that needs to be discussed, and we want to break through, right? And so one of the first ones we did in the last event is inventory, regardless of the vertical you're in right now.
Inventory that we should be discussing?
Yeah, most businesses are having inventory problems, right? In Business Bourbon and Cigars, at least on the dealer end, we got a major inventory problem with car dealers right now, and the supply is virtually non-existent. So on the new side, right? And so the challenge, the mastermind topic was, how do we become best in class? In other words, best in class, how do you guys define that in your market, right? How do we become number one, considered best in class in sales and profit, in spite of the problems with inventory, right? And then we sit there and we turn the tables over, anywhere from 5 to 8 people, all high-powered dealers, general managers, And they then work as if they're working for this. Each table is considered one dealership.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got 45 minutes to come through up with breakthroughs and solutions to how they can solve that, how they can sell more cars, make more money, regardless of the inventory situation. And the ideas that came from that were great. One of the things that I want to do differently, Sandy, and this is where I was going with Josh earlier. Some of the comments always just get me off message here a little bit, but they're good. And that is with Josh, a lot of times you can be in an environment like that and you might have a great idea, but you're hesitant to speak up because you're worried about
judging.
You're worried about the judgment from.
That's a stupid question. Why would you ask that?
Yeah. Or what, that idea would never work, right? Why would you think that? We can't do this. And so you don't want we internally have that fear of coming from that. And Josh brought up a good thing. He goes, and that restricts the ideas. That limits the type of innovation that you can come up with.
It inhibits creativity 100%.
Correct. So he has a solution to that. And I thought it was interesting. And it's one thing that we're going to play around with at this next event. He goes, imagine if Elon Musk was sitting at one of your round tables. Do you think he has the same fear as you when it comes to shouting out ideas?
Right.
And he goes, he doesn't. He has the opposite fear. Someone like a Jobs or an Elon Musk, their fear is coming up and shouting out the average idea, the lame idea, because their reputation are these innovative geniuses. And so if you were to play a role and you had to be Steve Jobs at this round table,
right,
and I had to be Elon Musk. And by the way, it doesn't always have to be good guys. It can be bad guys. It could be Dr. Evil. You could be whoever you wanted to be, right? But you had to deliver answers as if you were them. What type of ideas, what type of suggestions would you come up with?
Right.
And I thought that was an interesting thing. So I think fear can limit creativity one way or the other. So I think if we come from a place where we thought we were being judged for the lame or the normal or the average idea, I think our ideas would be that much stronger. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think, that process, and I recall that from the episode, and it was the one thing that was my big takeaway as I shared with you. I thought it was brilliant because conceptually it takes you out of, the rote, questions that we hear all the time. If you couldn't fail, what would you do? I mean, every time I hear that, I'm just like, oh my God, man, I get it. I know where we're trying to go, but this actually gives you a tool or a mechanism to actually make that a reality. Because even though you tell people, if you couldn't fail, what would you do? People still struggle there. But if you put them in a position where they've got to think like somebody else who they know of and see as an innovator or somebody that is, that doesn't have to have any fear, or you take that, they're able to put on a mask, if you will, and be somebody other than themselves, the inhibition seems to melt away. And I'm really excited for that aspect of the mastermind piece. I think it's gonna be awesome. And I'm very curious to hear who each person picks as their avatar, if you will.
Yes, that's a good way to say it. That's exactly what it will be. It'll be an avatar.
I know two people that they're not going to be picking. You and me.
I was going to say, I was going to put in I was going to put in a rule up front and announce it at the beginning that you cannot select me as your avatar, right? People know I'm half joking when I say that, Sandy.
Half joking, yes.
So that's
what you laid a line on me today on the phone that I'm not going to share online live on LinkedIn, but one of the better lines. I'm going to steal it.
We'll release that line when the time is appropriate.
In due time.
That's something that'll be
in due time, old bull, as they say, in due time.
Yes. So Martin Jones asked, what is Clubhouse?
That's a good question, Martin Jones. In the immortal words of Sandy Cerami, you need to Google that shit, brother. Right? You need to go Google what is Clubhouse, the audio app, and get on there. And then first thing you need to do, follow Sandy Cerami and then follow Scott Joseph.
So a little bit, Martin, on Clubhouse. And I think the power that it has. So it's it's an audio only app. It started out only on the Apple phones, but now it's across all platforms. So you used to have to be invited. I don't believe you have to be invited to come on it and join it anymore.
As they say in New Jersey, they let any swinging door in. You know what I mean?
It's an incredible app. And outside of in-person events, I don't know if I have seen an app or a social network allow you to build relationships as fast as that one. And I think it's because I'm able to get on there. I may not know you, and we start talking back and forth. I can tell you from a firsthand experience, forget the clients that have been gained from it, just from the relationships that have been built. I've had big time podcast guests, JT Fox, Tim Story, all kinds of people, Ira Davis.
Cerami. You had Sandy Cerami on.
Sandy Cerami. Well, you came before Clubhouse. Anthony Trucks, Josh Linkner, Samantha Edis. All these people came because of relationships that were formed literally within the last 6 months on Clubhouse.
Yeah. And by the way, there is the ties that bind, right? We're talking about it again, relationships, right? It's the foundation of what we want to do or continue to do as we evolve Business Bourbon and Cigars is, we want to build really high quality relationships with people that, span not only time, but also geography, right? You think about like Brad Mugg and I love Brad Mugg. Like I'm hitting Brad Mugg up and asking him for some insight on my daughter's college choice, right? Because she's looking at Loyola Marymount University out in LA. He's in LA. I'm in New Jersey. We're on two different coasts, yet literally off of the first meeting, I'm back and forth with Brad Mugg on a regular basis. Just a great guy that because of the fact that we were able to meet each other as part of the initial Business Bourbon and Cigars event, we've maintained a relationship, and a guy that makes me laugh and makes me think at the same time. One of the sharpest guys out there. BK had an opportunity to go down to Florida with David Boyle, CEO of Tire Profiles at Irving, Texas. Went down and we had dinner with Ed Roberts and Natasha, and then we had a chance to meet up with Brian Kramer. These are all relationships that we developed as a result of Business Bourbon and Cigars, and not running the meter every time. It's like going down and sharing a meal, sharing an idea, and having some fun.
Yeah. And quite honestly, I mean, the relationships in business that we've gotten on the dealer side, it's not just that, it's also the relationships that have been formed with the other sponsors and vendors and opportunities that have merged themselves. I feel like I could literally pick up the phone and instantly talk to anybody, one of these, because it's more than just business, right? It becomes more of a friendship stuff. And that's what I enjoy most of it. I'll give you another example that happened recently to me. And I was on a Clubhouse stage for this. I posted this on Instagram, and I don't say this to really impress anyone as much as I just kind of want to impress upon people the power of social media, the power of the relationship, and what it can do for whether it's your life or your career. I'm on an Instagram, on a Clubhouse stage, one of JT Fox's stages, and I must have said something, and it sparked something with an agent, a real estate agent up in Chicago. And he reached out to me, connected with me on Instagram, sent me a message saying, "Hey, I heard you talking about this and this on Clubhouse. I'm just going to send you some information that I think would help with some of the things that you were discussing."
Yeah.
So he sends me that. By the way, I gave him my email because he was so helpful with that. And a few months go by, and I sell a piece of real estate, and I got a 1031 exchange situation. And so I am now, if anybody's trying to buy real estate right now, it's not the easiest thing to do, because as soon as you find something, it's usually sold and you're on to the next one. And I was looking for a specific type of investment, multifamily type deal to be able to put that money into. And I reached out to him all because of this one contact and one email. and said, hey, I am now in the market for something like this. If you know of anything, and I did this to a few different agents, people in my network, and I said, I'd be interested. I'm in the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
He sent me a couple things, and literally one of the, most people may not know how a 1031 exchange works, but you got to list a certain amount of properties, up to 3 properties at a certain value of whatever building you just sold. His was one of the 3 I listed. And literally within just a few days, a contract was signed, sealed, and done on an 8-figure. It was an 8-figure deal. So high 8-figure deal. So, I was blown away. It got me thinking, and I'm sitting there, wow, here I never had a phone conversation with this guy. This was all email until the time I said, I'm now in the market. And then he calls me just to get more specifics, right? All from one interaction. And the key was he was being helpful. And I just wonder if everyone, the networking opportunities, the relationships that can be formed, because I think in today's world, you're only going to be as successful as the relationships you have.
Buddy, it's one of the core principles of our 7 Pillars platform. And we talk about turning contacts, connections, and conversations into client relationships, right? Where you can add value ultimately. And so I'm excited just to hear that, because that shows me that there are people out there that get that. It's so critically important. He didn't come carnival bark at you with, let me connect you on LinkedIn and then pitch you. He just basically made a connection, sent you some information that was relevant to a comment that you had passed on Clubhouse, and that turned into a strong 8-figure deal. Come on, man. I mean, I'm giving him a round of applause right now. That's a lesson, by the way, for the audience. Like, learn how to turn simple, everyday conversations, connections, and contacts into client opportunities. You'll never worry another day in your life.
Well, so I went up there eventually because I had to, by the way, because the real estate market's working so quick, right? This was under contract before I'd even seen it. And so I flew up within a few days after that to go look at everything and make sure everything was what it looked like on paper, and all that checked out well. But he's even a better person. And by the way, Frank Martinez up in Chicago, I should.
Yeah. Shout out to Frank.
Williams.
Shout out to Frank.
He's even a better person in person. This is a person that it isn't just going to be this one deal, right? So we're already talking about the next deal. And so it just blows me away how all that started. And if you think about it, the event we're doing, that would have never taken place without social media.
Correct.
That idea, not the fact that we should do an event, that doesn't come from social media. Events have been around forever. But for this specific concept and how we wanted to do it, all came really from what we were doing on social media, just from during the height of that COVID period in terms of when it first started breaking, right? And so what we were doing there was some of the D-Win and stuff like that, and the Fourth Box, and eventually it evolved into Business Bourbon and Cigars. And so none of that would have happened without social media. More importantly, none of that would have happened without the relationships. And if I think back, there was probably I feel like there was a 10-year window in my professional life where in fact, I will go back all the way 30 years when I started J&L Marketing.
Right.
We're in auto, and auto can be very competitive.
A little bit.
Right. Or at least we started off in the auto industry. We've expanded past that now, but for the most part, the majority of our customers and clients, I should say, are still automotive.
Right.
In that, when you come from that industry, you're a very competitive person.
Yes.
And we had a mentality really for the first 20 years, 25 years of we can handle all this ourselves. We don't need help.
Right.
I don't need that person. I don't need this person. We're going to crush it no matter what we do. And we're going to own this stuff, and we're going to set up the processes and the marketing and do it all ourselves. And I got to tell you, I wish I could go back and I don't know if everybody wishes they could go back in time, buddy. Right? It started over. But if I could go back in time, Yeah. So I'm asked when I'm on podcast or when people or some of my guests, they ask me, if you could start over, what would you do different? Right. If I could do anything different from day one, I would have looked for strong strategic alliances and realized that a
Yes.
small piece, a small percentage of a much bigger pie is better than a big piece of a small pie. Right.
I echo your sentiment, buddy. I think about our relationship, how funny it is that we're as good of friends and as strong collaborators as we are at this point. I was a client of J&L for years and years, right? My dealership was a client of yours for years and years, and you and I never met because Thomas was my guy. I didn't need to know you because everything got taken care of at Thomas's level. And then you had reached out to me. I don't know. It's like 5 years ago now with Jamil to look at the platform you had developed. And I remember ending that conversation, buddy. And you said, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to figure out how to do something together. And I said, no, I feel the same way. And then, to our discredit, quite honestly, you and I let like 7 months go by. And then I think you reached back out to me with respect to the podcast. That's what initiated and ignited this incredible relationship, by the way, which I'm beyond thankful for every single day. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say that.
I wish I could feel the same way. I wish I could feel the same way.
That's right. Trish has told me how much you regret the fact that you reached out to me that day. I can't get rid of this guy. I'm like a bad penny.
So, let's go back to the luck thing. That, to me, that relationship, you and I didn't plan that. We knew that there was a potential there to something much bigger, right? But it's not like we sat down and planned things out. We kind of lucked into that. I heard your podcast, but you know what? You were out there. Mm-hmm. You were making yourself known. You were grabbing attention for what you were doing with your own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I had already started thinking, I want to do one here with, Move, Crush, Count, the name and all that type of stuff wasn't even a consideration, but I knew I wanted to get into the podcast world. So when I saw yours, that was just luck in the sense that, hey, I'll just reach out to Sandy, pick his brain, and then you invite me on your show.
Yep.
And back then I was doing the exact opposite of what I consult and try to help other people with. Mm-hmm. And that is quit overanalyzing. The best thing you can do is to start. Right. But of course,
I think if you remember the conversation we had in February of that year, and you said to me, like, how'd you get started? And I was like, buddy, and this, I know you know about me by now because it drives Marvelocity crazy, is that I don't take a whole lot of time. And this is to my detriment as well sometimes, but I don't wait. I don't get ready to get ready. And I said to you, Scott, just press record. Like, go turn the microphone on, turn the camera on, press record, and go. You have something to say, and it's of value. And to your credit, you planned yours out very, very effectively. And I mean, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, and I put that up there, quite honestly, with Rogan, because I listen to him all the time, PBD. I mean, I listen to some real players, Jay Abraham, who you introduced me to. I didn't even know Jay Abraham was until you had shared him with me. But I listen to those 3 podcasts regularly, along with Andy Frisella and yours. Yeah. Those are the 5 that I listen to on a regular basis to learn.
You bring up Jay Abraham. In the 90s, I would say if there was one marketer that I was buying material from, learning from, it was him more than all others.
Yeah.
And I just absorbed that stuff and applied it instantly. So I love everything that Jay does. So, and really, quite honestly, as technology is advanced, it's just so much easier to take every principle that he's ever taught and it will say 10x. It will do a cheap plug for someone else.
Buddy? Would you agree? Like, there's no more excuses for any of us, right? The minute we sit back and say, how am I going to get that done? I use the hashtag GTS. Google that shit. Go Google it. Figure out how to do it. Find somebody that knows how to do it. Ask them questions. Pick their brain, and then just go do it and make a mess. Make a mess early on at the end of the day,
So Martin Jones has a good question. What's a good podcast for marketing? Well, first, Move, Crush, Count. All right. That would be a good one.
Baby.
However, I love Donald Miller's.
Donald Miller's podcast. Thank you. I'm remiss. Donald Miller.
And,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I
Business
think
Made
that's a
Simple.
good, yep. So I would say, Donald Miller's podcast, very specific to marketing, but just like all of the people that center, like, what I want to do is I want to help with Move, Crush, Count. I want to help businesses grow.
Yeah.
And so that is not limited to just marketing, right? We're a marketing agency at J&L, and that's who produces it and sponsors it. But a lot of that comes from leadership and from culture, which is why we've had you on the program a ton. Ira Davis, Anthony Trucks,
My man.
Josh Linkner with innovation, right? All these things, they all kind of have this, they weave in and out of each other. I mean, they're all important. They're all part of the recipe to having success.
My answer to Martin would be this: find a podcast you enjoy listening to, and pay attention to how they execute on that podcast. From the topics that they discuss to how they discuss them to the types of questions that are asked. There are a lot of different things that you can pick up just by participating and playing, paying attention as you're playing along, so to speak.
Yeah. So let's do
There's my man, Ron Marvo. So Ron and I were together yesterday, and we were talking about, when we
and just let's read what he typed here. You don't have to be great to start. You just have to start somewhere.
Well, I'll finish that quote. It's, you have to start to be great. It's Zig Ziglar, and he and I had talked about that yesterday, and this goes to content, right? So I'm watching online, and it's one of the things that I'm so hyper focused on. I always want to put out content that's authentic and original. I don't want to rip off anybody else's content and put my name to it. I think that's probably the worst thing that you can do on social media. But Ron and I had a really long conversation about it yesterday. And I was sharing with him a couple of scenarios I've seen over the last couple of years where people have flat out plagiarized and taken authentic original content. And so that's why he's put that comment up there. But good job, my friend Marvelocity.
How many nicknames does Ron have?
Marvelous Ron Marvo, Marvelocity, the man, the myth, and the Marvo. I can keep on going, Scott. Now, I can't share the nicknames that we've got for you on the air because I think the FCC might end up shutting us down. But
I don't think they pay attention to what we're doing here.
Well, then we're doing something wrong, brother.
Unless we're talking about COVID, then they shut you down.
Forget it. That is like, kill it.
Me just saying that word, I hope we don't get flagged for something and get taken off.
We might. Thanks for that, bro.
They'll disable the comments and everything.
We can mask up. We'll mask up. We'll be good. So let's jump back on track. Let's talk a little bit more about Business Bourbon and Cigars, buddy, because I think that, what we've got planned for February 1st through the 3rd in 2022 is exciting. It's dynamic. It's different. And I'm not just using those adjectives to try and, get people's attention, although maybe I just am. The fact is, it's true. We've got a lot of fun. We've got a lot of opportunity for networking and meeting, as I said, people that are looking for opportunities to grow their business, grow themselves along the way. We've got some, I'll call it some extracurricular activity that centers around business and cigars. Can you give away the big one on the bourbon side? I know you hesitate for one reason, but we have a potential special guest that's planned for, and a lot of it hinges on, a couple of health factors or factors.
Correct.
COVID.
Yeah. As of now, we do have booked, I will say this, a bourbon Hall of Famer scheduled to come on to the event, do a little book signing during some of our bourbon tastings, things such as that, meet and greet type thing. He's an outstanding. I'll say this. I'll give this hint. He has been on the Move, Crush, Count podcast.
Yes, he has.
All right. There's only two. We've only have two bourbon founders that have ever been on the podcast, and it's not episode number 1 or 2. So that I will allow people to go to movecrush.com, movecrushcount.com, and they can figure that out.
He's what I would consider to be bourbon royalty.
Oh yeah. Right? TB or the initials. We'll leave it at that.
Yes.
All right.
Number 1 with something like that. A bullet.
Oh, well, it's the it's the number one. It's the number one rye in the world, but he's scheduled to be on. But quite honestly, yeah, because um, depending on if there are any restrictions, we're this event's in Florida, so more than likely we'll be okay. But he's got to be careful with certain things.
Yeah, understood.
Uh,
The location is
so
spectacular. We're just north of
yep.
Naples, Florida. The weather is going to be very cooperative. I've spent plenty of time in that area, as you know.
Well, you're a high roller. You're a high roller. You're an aristocrat. You belong down there.
Yes. Yes, that's for sure. If you look up ham and egger in the dictionary, you'll find me. I'm right there, but I keep on eating. But the area is spectacular. It's easy to get to, which is something that's critically important. So it's easy in, easy out as far as the airport's concerned, and the hotel. The location is spectacular. I'm gonna say this to you: you will not find a better sunset location, okay, anywhere on the East Coast than you find on the West Coast of Florida. It's as good as it gets.
I agree with you 100%. This location for the event we're doing with the business, the cigars, the whole setup and what they're doing is outstanding.
And by the way, usually if anybody in the audience has ever had crabs, we're going to race them.
And we're going to bet on them. And so that's exactly right. And so you can't come from Louisville, involve bourbon and cigars, and not do some type of gambling.
I want to clarify. I meant the hermit crabs. I should have clarified that. Sorry.
So many things I want to say there. No, you didn't throw me off. I'm just debating, should I say it or not? So I've chosen not to. So I will say this. So usually when I go to Florida on a personal, for
sunrise at Adam Aaron's place, I'm in.
I know. I love it. I usually stay on the east side, the lower east side. And I'm just curious because you tend to go more on the west side, and I'm curious the difference in the demographics of the people on the west side versus the east. And I'm just wondering if there is an age, if there's an age discrepancy between the two. I don't know.
Well, listen, I'll let Brian Kramer speak to that because he's right down the street. He will be there, BK, the absolutely world-class GM over at Germain Toyota in Naples. But I will say this to you, my man. I've spent time on both coasts. I'm an equal opportunity offender on both coasts of Florida. And I know you're just getting one last shot in while you can, because I'll have the upper hand before long.
We got Adam Aaron, sunrise at my place. So I'm glad he chimed in here, and I'm glad he's listening because he's always, first off, he's attended everyone, which we're very thankful for. He's an incredible dealer and operator, even better person.
Even better person. Thank you. Yep.
And is always willing to share his knowledge and expertise and his experience to help others.
Mm-hmm.
But he's always been very helpful in terms of this event, helping us form the agenda and the topics as well. And there's a topic that I reached out to him when we were coming up with some of the mastermind topics. And one of the ones that he came up with that we're putting in, and it's going to be done on the Thursday. And that is, how do you grow through acquisition or through raising capital in different relationships or strategic alliances?
Yep.
And I love this for so many reasons, because one, if you're a dealer and you're trying to expand by getting more rooftops or grow your business that way, what are the best paths to do that? What are some of the things that you can do to do that, grow faster than what you're currently doing, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of general managers that are ready to take the next step.
Sure.
Right? They have aspirations to become dealers. And one of the things that's going to be talked about in that mastermind is coming up with action plans for those people as well. It was a very unique topic. I love it. And to his credit, we are going to make sure we bring in some people that are extremely knowledgeable in that area to help form that and sit at these tables as well. So I thought, man, this is a unbelievable thing. All right, I've got to put this comment up. All right.
Uh-oh.
Although I don't understand this. This is, although it's after school, so my daughter must be tuning in. It's on my wife's account.
Miss Sophia, how are you? I love her, buddy.
Hi, Dad. This is Sophia on Mom's account. Is that Sandy Cerami? Yes, it is. That's the one and only.
I love her. She's a doll. She's mini Trisha's mini me for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt. That's probably a very good thing.
Well, thank God for that, buddy. You kidding?
Yeah.
No question.
All right. So, let's close it out. I appreciate
Well, here's
everybody
what I'd like to
tuning
do,
in.
if you could, since you
Yep.
are in the broadcast center, we should have the URL for more information for folks if they want to find out, the who, what, where, why, and how of Business Bourbon and Cigars. What's the URL? Maybe they can put it on the footer.
Yeah.
Down below. That might help.
Well,
and by the way, they can always reach out to me by phone, 201-753-1234. Happy to take the phone call, or my email address, sandy@sandycerami.com, if you want more information, or ron@sandycerami.com. Either one of us can help you out with more information for sure.
You keep talking, Sandy. I'm typing in on the ticker the web address. So
I'll tell you, one of the talents of one marvelous Ron Marvo, and his dad will get a good kick out of this. He's the fastest typer in the history of New Jersey. He's won a number of different speed typing contests, and his dad is wildly proud of him because of that. First thing his dad asked me when I met him was, did Ron tell you how fast he could type?
He did.
Right. And right now, Marvo is probably driving off the road laughing on his way from our meeting this afternoon.
All right. So if you are a dealer, if you are a general manager, if you are a service manager, fixed op director, right, you want to go to Business Bourbon Cigars for Dealers.com. Business Bourbon Cigars for Dealers.com. And that's where you can sign up. We expect a very good turnout. This grows every year.
It will sell out. So let's be clear, because we had people last year that were calling me, the 2 weeks going into the event, can I get a seat? And we accommodated a couple of people, and quite honestly, it became too tight. So if you have the interest, and you should, by the way, because this is unlike any other event that's out there, make it happen early. Make sure you get your reservations early. The hotel will sell out. The event will sell out. And you will miss out. So you don't want to be the one that misses out.
Well, the room rates on this, we've got it blocked for like $370 something, I believe, a night.
Which is what, by the way, which is like a third of what you would normally pay. Those rooms go for over $1,000 a night.
They're going for right now $1,200 a night.
Yeah.
So this is something you're going to want to attend. You're want to get on now. And to your point, it's not that we want to. We would love to have thousands of people in there, but this is a very intimate event.
Sorry. No, we wouldn't.
Well,
leave that up to GC. Let GC put 30,000 of his closest friends together. We want an intimate, engaging environment that facilitates the kind of discussions that people can actually get some shit done when they get back to their dealerships.
Well, the reality is the room that we're in, the Dolphin Tour, the bourbon tastings, the rare bourbon tastings, the thing with our bourbon guests that'll be coming in, all those things have limited capacity. So it's not that we don't have the choice. So we have to limit it. So make sure you take action now. So just visit that site you see scrolling along on the bottom, Business Bourbon Cigars for Dealers.com.
Some of those rare bourbons are going to come out of Ed Roberts' collection, I suspect, because he might have the best bourbon collection out of any attendee at Business Bourbon and Cigars. And I was actually had the opportunity to visit his store this past week with Dave Boyle, and was wildly impressed. And not just by the facility. I want to be clear. Like, he has a great bourbon collection. He's got an amazing team of people. The culture in his dealership, I'm giving him a shout out right now. If you are anywhere in the St. Augustine area, Southern Georgia, Northern Florida, and you're looking for an opportunity to join a team, you should be knocking on their door, sending your resume like yesterday, because what I witnessed firsthand at his dealership was absolutely spectacular. I know Adam Aaron's up in New England has the same type of an environment.
Well, I was going to say, Adam had a good post on, I think it was Facebook this morning. He goes, when he's present in the store, most of his day is consumed with just training people, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that Adam's brought into these masterminds and these roundtables that I thought was interesting, especially when we talk about leadership and culture, whether it's customer retention, all this overlaps a lot, is the career path that he brings people on. Let's face it, we're in most auto dealers, there's not always a career path. We hire something. We usually have not the greatest process in the interview process, but for the really progressive dealers, the really good operators, they have a very good recruitment strategy, a very good hiring process, onboarding strategy, but it doesn't end there. They have continuous training and they have a career path. And I think Adam's, if you reach out to Adam Aarons on LinkedIn or any other, he's big on Facebook as well. He's not shy about sharing the success that he's had with it and what that process is. And I don't want to speak for him, but I do believe he'd probably help you with that and kind of tell you what
I'm
it
going
is.
to say this, Scott, because I think I can sum up Adam Aarons' philosophy in something that he shared with me the last time we were together in Louisville. And he said, I'm not out there actively looking for dealerships. I just buy another dealership when I've got a number of qualified people that need to grow. He says, my growth strategy is to grow my people, and then my business will grow organically as a result of that. And there is such unbelievable wisdom in that philosophy, and he lives and breathes it every single day. A really unique, amazing person, by the way. I'm
gonna quote Adam. All right, because the last event that we had, it was here in Louisville, and he's somebody we always want there because his ideas are strong, right? Yep. And he calls me about a week before. He's already RSVP'd. Calls me about a week before and says, Scott,
I remember
I've got a GM out. And he had maybe 2 GMs. He goes, it's really going to be hard for me to break away next week and get there for the 3 days. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, that stinks because, we want him in there.
Yep.
And he goes, can you resend me the agenda? Because I need to be absolutely sure if I'm going to break free of this from the store during this time, is it worth mine? So I sent it to him. He ended up coming in, made it happen. And literally, this is exactly what he told me after the first mastermind. He goes, for me to be here, I calculated my cost in time to about $100,000.
Yep.
All right. He goes, I've more than made up for that in 1 hour on that first mastermind.
Yep.
That's a quote.
Yeah.
So,
but Scott, I'm going to say this to you. There's a reason why that happens, right? You get out of these experiences at the minimum what you put in, right? Okay. But when you really come in with the right kind of an attitude where you're coming in to be generous, as he and so many of the other attendees are in terms of their acumen, their experience, their ideas, and you're willing to actually listen and absorb, you can go out with 15, 20, 30 times what you thought you were going to get out of the event. And he's a perfect example of that.
Yeah. And I love surrounding so I go back to the like-minded comments you meant earlier. I want to surround myself with people like that.
That push me.
I want to grow my network with people like that. Yep. I went to a conference in Atlanta called the Unconference. Another good friend, Tim Cox, and the Modern Day Car Sale.
Man with the busted biscuits.
That's right. So Modern Day Car Sales is a good automotive room on Clubhouse every morning. And they had a conference in Atlanta.
Out to James and Bruce.
Yep. And so, that was a great environment for people that were willing to share, talk, put their stuff and their ideas out there. But more importantly, also be open-minded and understanding. And Alex Flores said this great when he was down there. He goes, no matter how good of a job you're doing, and his store's crank, right?
Oh, they do.
I want to be open-minded and feel I can learn from everyone in this room. And so that's the environment we're trying to create. But more importantly, when you bring all these great people and all these great minds together and they start talking, all right, it's different than a 20 group, Sandy.
It's a much different environment.
It's a much different environment.
This is all A players coming down. So
well, but you can have 20 groups where every dealer in there is an A player, right?
There are those type of groups. You see it. That's not always how you see it.
But you're not always tackling issues, and you're not always not brainstorming, but actually working on and developing action plans that you can take home and integrate immediately. A lot of times you're just going through everybody's book and their numbers and such. A lot of the time is dedicated towards that. This is not that. I go back to Think and Grow Rich, that book, and that we give free copies of that, obviously, to all the attendees in advance, because I want them understanding what a mastermind truly is and what we expect of them. This is not you showing up, listening to a bunch of stuff and going home. We need people that are willing to participate and help develop a breakthrough or a new idea, a new solution. And, Henry Ford, when he started Ford, I love all the people that built businesses of just mass and size. Ford Motor Company, all done through the mastermind process of bringing people in. He didn't know what he was doing in terms of running a car company. Most of that knowledge was brought from outside. He didn't need to know it. He didn't need to surround himself with the right people, right? And he was a master at that.
That's a fact. Listen, I'm excited. I can't wait to get down there. I'm looking forward to jetting out to you guys in December as we do the final prep, so that we can, motor in the end of January, beginning of February. Once again, I'm just going to remind anybody that has interest, do not drag your feet, because this thing will sell out quickly and the rooms will not be there. And so we want to see everybody that wants to be there, there.
That's correct. All right, we'll close it out with that. Once again, this is Move, Crush, Count. This is a live version being broadcasted out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, also on the different groups that we're involved with. Make sure you follow us on all the different channels. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're everywhere,
Clubhouse,
any social channel you can think of. Clubhouse, we have a room there as well. So make sure you follow that. Or I should say the club, not necessarily the room. The room's got a live thing, but we appreciate you all tuning in. We will be back next week. Thank you.
All right, baby.
Thank you, Sandy.
Good to see you, SJ.
Yep, you too.
Say hi to Miss Sophia, Miss Trish.
Yes.